Yay!
So, hello, welcome. I'm really happy to be here now after the amazing performance we saw by you two, to have the chance to talk about it and other questions around this idea of phantom homelands, the big topic we're discussing in these 3 days. So, welcome to you. I'm really happy you're here with us. So from where are you? Good evening.
Good evening from Taipei. It's almost 2:00 in the morning.
Yeah. Thank you so much for staying awake for us.
Yeah. Good evening from my side too. I'm from Vienna, in Vienna. Yeah.
So you don't have 2 a.m. in the morning. You didn't have to stay awake too long. So cheers.
Cheers.
So yesterday in the evening, we already had another talk with authors, one author from the US and 2 from Germany.
Yeah.
And we discussed a bit like also their idea of homelands. And one of them, Jan Brandt, a German author, he said he feels like he has various homelands, especially if you look at it on the perspective of time. So there's like the current homeland, and then there's a homeland of the past. And I had to remember that when I read the title of your performance, because it's called The Past as a Foreign Country. So you're also making this connection to the past. So maybe let's start with my personal question to you. So what would you say, can you relate to this idea of having different homelands or like spaces of home in different perspectives of time, like in the present and in the past? And where would that be for you?
Well, for me, first of all, the homeland and home is like 2 extremely different terms. So in my case, I mean, I grew up in Japan until when I was 18, and then I moved to Europe. I lived a few years in Sweden, and then I moved to Vienna. And I've been living in Vienna for 3 years. So I've been in Vienna for longer than the time I spent in Japan as a child. So it's I'm quite shocked by this fact, actually. And it's interesting because I feel I come from Kobe. I come from Japan, but specifically like from this west side of Japan. And I kind of identify myself from being from there. But then again, I think my identity as being a foreigner is a kind of becoming a very clear term for me. It's like I feel in a way, also in funny ways, comfortable to be a foreigner, to live in a foreign country.
That's really interesting that you say that, because I think like most people associate with like being a foreigner rather negative feelings. So can you explain that? What do you like about this role?
Well, I don't know. It's like I used to joke, like I used to say Japan is a great country to escape from. And so there's something in that you are kind of living in a place, but you are not really belonging there. So you kind of are free at the same time. So there's this foreigner's perspective. There's outer perspective that you can see where you are from another perspective, from above or from somewhere else. That's what I enjoy.
And how is it for you?
Yun.
Me?
Yes.
Okay. Well, in relationship to the question and to the title of our work, I'm right now in Taipei, and I've been here right now for 6 months. So the last time I was in Austria was 6 months ago. And even though, I mean, I'm Austrian, I grew up there 40 years and something, and I would, of course, without this COVID, we would be all sitting together. And I know, of course, the city of Vienna so well, but within even just 6 months, it feels so far away. It feels so abstract. So even Austria and Vienna, the place that is absolutely so much of my identity, feels extremely far away. And it makes me think about that this title that we chose, I think, is quite fitting to the idea of space and time, and nothing about quantum physics or anything, but really the idea of where, you know, like when Michikazu says he's been now more in Austria, longer period of time than in Japan. And of course, everyone who sees me or sees Michikazu, he will say, oh, you're Japanese or you're Chinese and anything. Eh? But now we've created a different idea of home and both homeland. And so it's really, and I was today at the Austrian society party in Taiwan. Like maybe there are 20 people, really, 20 people there. And it's still, and all of them, they are now sort of like a capsule, like a space capsule that is not connected anymore. They're like drifting in this space where really time, you know, nobody, I think maybe within also this COVID period, we can't really relate to both time and even place. And then Austria feels so abstract, I would assume, for anyone, because you are in a lockdown. So you're not going out to the restaurant eating that. You're in a bubble in itself. And yeah, I think it is as weird as we are talking between all the time differences and space differences and even home differences right now.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting. Like I also thought that when you said that Michikazu, so it's the same for my father. So he grew up in Iran and he came to Germany when he was 17, but still people always say, yeah, he's from Iran originally. Even I always tell his story, you know? So I had to think about this part also. I remember very well from your performance when you talk about how your identity is shaped also by your parents or the place you lived or you were born yourself, and why it is not shaped by where your children, for example, grow up. I think that was a really amazing idea. Like, I don't know, I mean, probably you know that from Austria too. Here in Germany, for example, we as like second generation children of immigrants, we are really, we're so annoyed by always answering this question of, but where are you from originally? So it would be, go for it.
Sorry to, I had 2016, I had an exhibition at the Roppongi, the Mori Museum, and it's the exhibition for Japanese artists. But I've been living there for 10 years. So I decided I wanted to give a talk. And in this talk, I said, why are we shaped or why are we assumed by the identity of my parents? So my parents are Chinese. So why am I shaped and identified by the identity of my parents? Why cannot it be the other way around? My kids are Japanese. So why can I not take, because I still have to take them to school. I still have to read them all these things. I still have to celebrate Sakura and Hanabi. I still have to celebrate all their days. So isn't it, I mean, if something like, if color is influenced by a different color and watercolors, why can you not be shaped and influenced by your kids or by the other generation, by the place? And isn't that equally part of your identity? And I think maybe here is, we can come up or we can move on to a different notion of what home means or homeland even means. And yes.
I think there's this, there's like, we treat these kind of national borders as if they are really dividing our identities into national identities, but we don't have that. That border is actually really fluid. It's never like concrete border. It's like always in a gray zone, always in a shifting. So that's my understanding that, okay, as we are trying to look like categorize the impossible, let's say.
And I think it's really interesting, like you say, that first borders are very fluent, and it's not like there's one nation state and it's all defined, but it's also so interesting that we're so focused on this idea of nationalism or nationality as defining your home, because like, for example, also my German neighbor, we might have the same passport, but then in the end we have so different interests, we listen to different music, we do different food, so maybe I feel more at home at a place similar to someone else, I don't know, from maybe South Korea, even I haven't been there ever, but because other things are home for us, we share in common.
No, maybe it's the gap between this physical border that exists in physically, like they are like, I mean, that can be also, it's a question, it's a conflict actually to really set these clear borders physically. But there we have been trying, like politics has been trying, but then there is this kind of mental borders that are going over that border. There's a gap between the physical and mental borders.
You agree. So I thought it was really interesting that you say you left Vienna only 6 months ago. I think you said 6 months, and it feels so far away. So do you think this would be a feeling basically everyone would have if you're so far away from your home for 6 months? Or do you think there are some factors, some things which influenced you that you only leave for 6 months and you're already in the situation now, you feel so far away from Vienna?
Well, for one is I haven't left Vienna for 6 months for more than 20 years. So normally, of course, we would, you would see your parents. You would, Michikazu would fly back to Japan. I would fly to China to see my parents. And I'm sure we all haven't seen many friends that we really are close with for a year maybe, or for a very long time. So this feeling far away is not only physical, but really like also emotional, I would say. And I think this has, of course, to do with the pandemic, of course, because we can't travel, we can't see. And this is one thing. The second thing is, I think, so there's, of course, the personal thing, the emotional personal thing. But the second thing is, of course, it's so abstract to imagine how it is now for each of your friends in even the closest city. So even your closest friend, living maybe just in the neighbor city or even in the same city, you won't maybe get to see, or you cannot visit maybe your grandfather in the hospital or these places. So even though you're so close in a way, it becomes so abstract for me, and especially because I'm in Taiwan, so there is like 0 cases in Taiwan. Life goes on quite on a normal, regular. Gathering, party, dinner, blah, blah, blah thing. So that makes me extremely abstract. My brother, of course, Michikazu is in Vienna, and my brother and friends and blah, blah. But it's so abstract for me to also, imagine all these things. So that makes everything even more distant. So even like 6 months feels like much longer, of course.
I was quite surprised last time I talked on the video chat with you, Jun, that you were in a kind of picnic with others in a park.
Right.
And that was like quite shocking, because here it's like, okay, everybody's supposed to stay at home and nobody should try to meet and so on. So and I'm following a lot of that. So it was kind of surprising to see, like, okay, it's very different in another place.
Yeah, I mean, even tonight you said. Even tonight you said you're coming. Even tonight you said you're coming from a party, right? So I think for us, the last or dinner party, dinner, a dinner, but a dinner like a dinner with 20 people. My last dinner,
with 30 people, I had a dinner with the Austrian Society and the Austrian German Swiss Society, and I had dinner with them. And I told him I have to go, but it's equally abstract for me as it feels. It's really like a parallel reality, which
I think also, like this feeling when you travel, and you leave a place and the life there goes on, and the people still do the same thing, but it's you're in such a different place.
But the point is, I'm flying next week to Japan, so so I fly next week to Japan, so I have to get the coronavirus test. I have to do 2 weeks quarantine in Japan, 2 weeks, Then I come back to Taiwan. I have to do again 2 weeks. Because in Europe, you don't have to do any quarantine. So
yeah,
I have to.
We have to.
We have
you
to
have
finally,
to,
finally.
Okay, finally.
No, but really,
Okay.
traveling is really much more difficult than ever now. It's like near impossible. And this is also very interesting that it's always this national border that you even try to block the virus. I mean, this was very, in the beginning of the pandemic, there was like, in Austria, it was very interesting image that, okay, the coronavirus spread. And there was this one hotel that policemen were trying to stand in front of the hotel as if they are guarding something dangerous. But, it was just nonsense image of trying to like stop the virus with a physical strength like that. So there's this military force they are trying to kind of use in the fight against the virus, which is just total nonsense. It's for me very interesting confusion.
So without going into now too much of our personal things, we were invited last year to show this piece in Taipei at the Taipei Performing Art Festival. And of course, it was invited 2 years before. So nobody knew that the virus would happen. And both Michikazu and I, of course, were going to be present and perform this piece as much as we would have loved to perform this right now, tonight in Münster. Really. But it was interesting because when the coronavirus broke out, of course, last January 23rd of 2020, we realized suddenly that we had written a piece that was dealing with this idea of locking down. Let's say just the story about Japan having locked itself down in the Senkaku period, or even or of course the quarantine of Neil Armstrong, Buzz Aldrin, and all the astronauts. So we suddenly were discussing this last year in April because we were both like in lockdown, and then we managed to meet again, and we discussed, and we felt like, wow, I mean, not wow, but it was that our work, this piece, had very much to do with kind of with references and relationships to the situation we have now. I mean, imagine a country like Japan to close down itself, really, like as for 200-300 whatever. Sorry, I can't remember 200-300 years, which is amazing even today. And we have now pretty much a situation where we all have been more than a year. Which, of course, you have to imagine the speed that we're living in, the flights. Of course, at that time, for somebody in Japan to come to Europe would have taken months and months and months, of course. And today, you just go online and book one. If you cannot find, there are 10 flights normally going between Japan and Vienna. And right there is not a single one. I cannot send a letter in 2021 by post from Taiwan to Austria. There is no postal system.
Really?
Which is crazy.
Okay.
It's canceled. You can send by FedEx or DHL. Of course. But the official postal system between in 2021, which is kind of crazy, and so I thought we thought last year when we did the show in a similar way, the work in Taiwan, that both the curators and also we felt it was very interesting, this piece that we wrote, of course, in 2018, and of course the situation now in 2020 and 21. And we still can go back to personal drinking and no.
Yes, for sure.
Okay. Go ahead, Jim.
Do you have something? So you have water or tea?
I have tea.
That's good too. I mean, what you described now also with like how difficult it got to travel. I think you said that somehow before, but I think it's something we sometimes forget in this debate of how borders were closed and how travel restrictions are now, how we have travel restrictions now, that it's not only about tourism, but also how strongly it influences like families who had migration in their families, so people can't see their relatives anymore or their friends, how you said before. I think if we look once again on your performance, what for me was really interesting that you're not talking about home only, but like with the moon and the Mount Everest as the highest mountain of the world. For me, it was like you're also talking about like places of longing, of dream for human beings. So is that like only my interpretation, or was it also the idea you had when you came up with these ideas?
Definitely, I think it's a place of how do you say, of hope, of our longing and belonging. And I think also moon is actually also like a dream, a place of dream, but then it also again was very much a territory of politics. So this was for us very interesting to deal with the complexity of the same place, same territory that can mean in different ways. So also the past is a foreign country, and then also in our discussion earlier here, like your homeland can become a foreign country. That twist is for me quite interesting to notice.
So you mean like even the place you were born in when you grow up, and I don't know, maybe because of who you are or how you feel or what you're interested in, you can still feel like, yeah, it can feel like a foreign place.
Yes. In terms of like where I come from, Kobe, Japan, it's like, it's really definitely a foreign land to me than ever. Like it twisted. But at the same time, Vienna is still a foreign land for me. So it's like I'm in between. I'm never arriving.
Yeah. So you're in between the time. What's no? But like, this feeling you're describing, did that come up when you were in Vienna, or did you already have it when you were still in Kobe?
I don't know. When I was in Kobe as a kid, I didn't have this perspective of global scale of locations. I didn't know. I mean, actually as a kid, for me, it was always fascination to travel the world, to see different cultures. So that's been always like my desire to see different cultures, but also to meet different people. But when I was there, you just don't have this outer perspective, foreigner's perspective, if you want to say. Yeah.
Well, the question you raised about this longing for a higher place, like the moon, reaching the moon or reaching Mount Everest or going abroad, it of course has to do also. It's a very, first of all, I mean, it's also a piece about, it's a very macho male thing.
Yeah.
This idea of the competition, this idea of who is the first and who wants to dominate and who has their face up the plaque and who gets the medal and who is cheered. This is, and at the same time, it's also a very capitalistic idea, the idea of more profit. This year we made so much, next year we have to do that much, and so on. And also in relationship to, since the Tokyo Olympics are coming up, it's of course this silly Olympic idea, Sitius, Fortius, or whatever, higher, faster, why, further or something. So of course we wrote this piece about this kind of absurdity of man needing to compete and to have more profit, to make more, to what's your next exhibition? What is your next piece? Where is your next whatever project? And always and no time to stop in a way. And of course, I think within this COVID period situation with the pandemic right now, we can't move on. You can't think, what are we going to do in summer? Nobody knows. Maybe you can go to the beach. Maybe you cannot go. Maybe you don't have the money to go to the beach. Maybe something else will happen. Maybe it will go even worse. We can't. Suddenly we are stuck in today. We're stuck in this moment, and there's no projection. No company can say, oh, we are going to make more, or we don't even know where the Olympics will take place. So this is, I think, but it's also a very interesting, and I think it's of course, I don't want to go into all these capitalistic criticism, but it's also an interesting time to stop and reflect upon both what we are doing, what we've been doing the past. So in here, I think the piece, without, of course, at that time not knowing that there will be the pandemic, everything relates very much also to this constant strife. Like in German, you say the hamster in a Laufrad, or like permanently, and also, and I think that's why we thought it would be beautiful to end the piece with both guys.
Hamsters, June.
Yeah, with both hamsters, Michikazu hamster and June hamster, to both have the story about that these two guys decided not to compete, let's say, or to say, well, we stepped together and we together took the last step instead of saying, no, I was first, no, he was first, and so on. Yeah.
I think it's really interesting how you brought together like this idea of how our society works today with all these capitalists running for something, looking for something, ideas. So would you say, you two, like, because of these effects, because of these ideas, and because of how our economy is organized nowadays, it became more difficult for people to feel home somewhere, or to belong somewhere, to arrive somewhere?
Well, yes. Think of it this way. I read some news article that historically, through thousands and thousands of years, okay, people strive to move somewhere. They invent boats, they make rockets, everything, yeah? And they create boats, rocket, airplanes, and everything. But then if you look at in the last 10, 20 years, we all try to stay home. So you have delivery, food delivery, you have Amazon delivery, you have home office. So people moving to the countryside. So suddenly there's, on one hand, the movement of going abroad, and this is also what the past is a foreign country is about, to think about the ocean and to think about, like where migration could be. And even within the problematic and the very big issue of human migration coming to Europe, or we used pictures of the Vietnam, like during the Vietnam crisis, and the old people in Hong Kong. So people try to move on, to seek somewhere else. But then in Europe for the last 10 years, there's so many things invented to not move, to stay at home, to you don't have to go you don't have to go to the bookshop. You can order. You don't have to go to the clothes shop. But then at the same time, right now that we were trying to stay at home, and within the COVID, we have to stay at home, everybody starts complaining.
But I noticed, I've been like through my work, especially because I'm working in the performing arts field. It's like I have to go and show my performance somewhere, and that's been like my life for the last decades. And that's, I realize now, because of pandemic, we don't move physically, we don't cross the border. And I realized that this of traveling, and I'm thinking a lot while traveling. And I think many performances I wrote while going somewhere. Also, this piece we just presented here, it was created partially in Gwangju in Korea, partially in Taipei, partially in Vienna. So we met in different cities. So this of going somewhere together, traveling and taking an airplane, taking a train and going somewhere and eating the food there, that was completely part of my working practice actually. And now I noticed that I had to kind of adjust to completely different ways of working. There was also when I was in Vienna and I had to write the text, I was always kind of dropping by in a cafe between my home and my studio, and then that cafe has been closed for a year almost. So it's really like I had to adjust in different ways of working method.
And can you explain that? So like, did you have the feeling that with changing these places, it gave you like more inspiration, obviously?
Definitely,
Or,
yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I realized I was reflecting on traveling while traveling.
So the piece was like the most part of the piece was written in the city of Gwangju. Within, that's why there is this big Korean part in the story. In the same, so I think, well, the two presidents, dictator president, met in April, and we were in May, June in Gwangju, in Korea, South Korea. So of course we related to it. We talked to people. We could see the newspaper. We could feel the tension in the city, and it's something I think very important to it. Of course, we didn't travel to India. We didn't travel to Kobe, but these were parts that we could research. But then I think there's also it's not an abstract piece. It's really quite a very real piece, and I think this is also very important that there is a certain relation to where it was written, where it was shown, of course, and why it was written at all in the first place. And I think that's and now, so we are now in a bit of a not empty, but in a space in the air situation where, of course, you're home and of course you relate to it, but there is no It's maybe I was reading the other day about Karl May, this German who wrote all Winnetou and all Shatterhand, and there are a lot of newspaper articles right now. But he had never been to the west of the United States, and he had never met any Native Americans and so on. Or he wrote about the Arabic places, but he had never been to. So yeah, he had never been there. So which is, I mean, nothing against this guy. But I think now it's important for both Michikazu's work and my work that we sometimes relate to it. And now I think we have to refigure out like how to work even. Really how to. I have of course no answer to that, but I think we're all in a process of how to work, because you don't have the dialogue that you normally have maybe with you cannot do that research that maybe we do. Or that we would like to do, and so I think that's also a very interesting situation. Let's say it this way.
Yeah, and I think it's really interesting, especially if we're like with the example of Karl May. Like if you then try to write about like foreign places, it's so dangerous to not only write about like cliches and maybe even racist ideas you have about foreign.
And maybe at that time, the information about foreign places were very, very little, because there were only a few. I mean, he was reading a lot of like all these travel documents by other signed travel writers and so on. So he was reading them, but these books were not widely available. So everything we write today, somebody can say, "Oh, that's nonsense. Doesn't exist." Yeah.
But do you think like this time now, this period of the pandemic will change forever, like how we think about home, about work, what we long for, and how we also travel? Or do you think like maybe in a year it will just be, or in 2 years, it will be just like a weird episode of our lives, and then we just go back to normal, flying from Japan to Austria to the US, back to whatever?
Well, the method of traveling, like airplanes, in a very critical situation, and of course, the mobility we were privileged enough to have until now. This is, I think, something we really have to reconsider. So there's a lot of heated discussions about traveling, but for me. It's really like, okay, there's pro and contra, but of course, I mean, we cannot really, we have to find a better way to travel without giving up the traveling altogether, because that's, for my understanding, it's not really possible. It's not really the aim of our growing in as a society. We have to meet the other, we have to meet each other. And we just have to find a better way to be able to do that.
And we also have to meet families and friends. Yeah, go for it.
No, sorry, I completely, I'm absolutely agree. I think we will, I think it's good that we have to reflect, because it's also not sustainable. It's not sustainable for instance, like I said, I have to do 2 weeks quarantine. I have to do another 2 weeks quarantine. So why would I do it if I feel like I need to go back to Japan because my family's there and so on, and I need to see them. So to me, that's, I think, absolutely worth all the time and all trouble. And so of course I haven't been there for more than 6. So you have to, you have to consider things. And I think it's good if we consider things more conscious, and if we weigh up more things. And I think I would believe that this will all shape us. I hope so. I would say, let's say, I hope. First of all, we don't know how long this is gonna last. You really don't know. Yeah. I mean, last year we all thought, and I was in China when the pandemic broke out, I swear to God. And we don't know how, we might think like, all right, okay, everybody's getting the vaccine, and I would love to, and then it's over. Maybe not. Maybe something else will happen. You can't predict anymore. And so, yeah, from here, I would say I do wish this would make us think more about how we travel, how we think about the future, how we think about sort of the idea of more, or moving on, or like all these questions that I think we three talked both in this talk and also in the work. Yeah.
Yeah, also this idea of constant competition, like you said before.
Yeah.
I mean, in terms of airplanes, it's really like 2 major companies, Boeing and Airbus. They are really connected to the politics, and they really influence the politics. So they actually have already technology to make a better airplane, more eco-friendly airplanes, but they influence the politics not to have to do that. For me, this is really a kind of irresponsible acts of mankind. And I hope this is also where our work, in reference to the politicians that we deal with in our work, it's a big hope for me that they change, that we can change this politics. And it's not that easy, like there's of course now believe that, for example, electric car would be better, but this is really not the case, like in some countries, like also Japan, where nuclear plants are like spread. Then it's like we are running the car that is with the electricity that is produced by nuclear plants. So then that's again like not really the solution. So the solutions are complex, and we have to look into case by case.
Invent cars that run on the red wine.
I don't know if that's a good idea, because then we have no left to drink.
Well, the red wines are very expensive here in Taiwan and Japan. That would make the price of red wine cheaper.
What about a car that runs on a green tea?
Cheese, yeah.
Water.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right.
I'm still also thinking about this, what you said in the beginning, Michikazu, how the interesting thing about living like between places also that you get the chance like to put together your own puzzle. So would you say, like yesterday in the evening we had this in the talk too, so if you have this feeling of homelessness somehow, is that a bad thing? Because that would be maybe the first association people have, or is that also a big chance to grow and to put together your own reality somehow?
Yeah, I mean, I think I wouldn't dare to say homelessness because I have a home, physical home. So in respect to the people who is suffering not having a home, I'm privileged to have a home, and I'm privileged enough to kind of also move into in different countries that I could choose to move to. So I chose to come to Vienna. And that I am aware of the privilege of that. So there are like different situations in the world that you cannot choose these things. So I'm aware of my privileged situation. Beside that, I think, I don't know. It's home is again like, I mean, last year or like a few years ago, I started a project that I perform in people's homes. It's called Homesick Festival, and it's basically a project that I visit homes of different people and perform there, dealing with the question of homesickness. So it's of this paradox of, okay, you can perform in a place where you actually don't belong to. So this of belonging and not belonging, this has been a kind of topic for me. And I think I live in that paradox, let's say. I live in the paradox of belonging here and not belonging here at the same time. So that's how it is. I have no preference to that. Do I want to belong more, or do I want to not belong more? I can't choose. It's almost like, that's something that is given to me and I have to deal with. Isn't that the same for you, Susan?
Yeah, I think, and I'm still wondering if there are really people who don't feel this sense of not belonging at all. Like, do you feel a 100% sense of belonging? Maybe like I grew up in a town in southern Germany, and a lot of people stayed there, or they left for university and came back to live there. So probably for them, it's really the place they belong to. But yeah, I feel the same, and I think it's then also the way I chose to live. So I moved around a lot too. So I mean, that's it makes it
I guess if you are belonging to one place or one identity or one category of a place or something, then I think it's healthy to have a feeling that you don't want to belong there.
Yeah,
I think that's a healthy resistance.
Totally. I mean, it can be so dangerous if people are convinced they are a good group.
Now, especially also pandemic is interesting to that it shows some of the very nationalistic ideas. That's for me quite surprising.
Totally, yes.
Block the border and just us.
Yes. I have bad news. Our time is already getting towards the end.
Yes.
So, June, maybe do you want to add some thoughts on
Well,
this?
maybe I can add something about this idea of the belonging in home. I always think about home and belonging to it. It's about the people and the places, both people and places. For instance, because I live in Vienna, Susanna, you are from Hamburg. I've been to Hamburg. There are friends in Hamburg. So let's say if there's something happening in the newspaper and something happens in Hamburg, I relate to it because I've been to Hamburg. So there is a sense of belonging, or there's a connection, a personal connection to it. But if it's something that is happening in Madagascar, I have not been to Madagascar, I feel, of course, less related to it. So to me, I define my home and the places that I belong to. Of course, it's very connected to our biographies of the cities we lived in, the places we've born, or the places our families from, and so on. So we relate to, of course, immediately, and then we feel, of course, hurt, we feel sad, and so on. But of course, sorry to say, again, nothing against anybody watching from Madagascar. If something now happens right now in Madagascar, I will not feel as close as something now happening in Vienna, like an attack, or like an accident, or like the government, or how, whatever. Yeah. I think it's and it is because I can have an image of it, and I can have it an image and then also an emotion to it. Yes. And that is maybe close to what I feel about home and belonging to something.
Yeah, totally.
Susan, I know we are running out of time. I think one important thing I want to say about our work is we have been friends before we work together, and we are friends still after working together.
That's really good. You did a good job.
and in one sense, our work, this work is a lot about our friendship. And that's something we didn't mention yet, but it's something I feel it's important to talk.
Yes,
totally. And I think that's a beautiful thing to end with, like the idea of friendship and belonging together, and how this probably for most of us is like the most important. Oh, this is so cute. You got a heart.
Look, I have a heart here too. You see it there?
Okay. Really cute.
Yeah.
Oh.
All right.
Thank you for the lovely talk and the lovely end. It was really touching with your hearts. Thank you for having been here. And I'm really happy to announce that it's not over for today. So now we have like a music
concert.
Yeah, we have a concert. We have a concert with Scaloscope and Andy the Door Boom. And I'm really happy to listen to it. And maybe it's also a good chance to keep these things we talked about. Yeah.
And we can dance?
Yeah, you can totally dance. Like, get up, get your wine. And what time is it now for you, Jun? It's like the middle of the night.
It's 2:34 in Japan, Taiwan.
I think that's the perfect time to have a dance in your apartment.
Yes. In my apartment. My neighbors will knock on my door.
Yeah, maybe no jumping involved. Okay, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much. Thank you,
everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.